Hey everyone, Sheila here from Life with Pets. So today I thought I'd show you how I do some of the water changes on the tanks that we do a lot of water changes on. One of them being the baby Betta tank, also our guppy fry tank. This is the one that we have divided with the males on the left and the females on the right. And then also I do this tank here about every third day, and this has got our female who is the mom of the baby Bettas. And then I also do this tank here about every other day, and that's simply because it is our snail breeding tank and it has got a lot of snails in this tank. So to keep the water parameters good, we do have to do a lot of changes on it. So I can do all these tanks at one go, and it usually takes me between 20 and 30 minutes. If I start sort of fiddling around in the tanks, then it will take me a bit longer, but usually I will then just basically do the water changes and then I'm done. All the water just runs out into the sink, which is really handy for me because I don't have to worry about it. I just have to keep an eye on the tanks. I do add in the baby Betta tank a piece of polyfilter on the end of the tubing, and then that way I don't have to worry about the babies being sucked up. And I also do that in the guppy tank as well. So in this tank I usually do between 30 and 40% about every 2 to 3 days. And then in the baby Betta tank, and as you can see there are a lot of them in here, I did try counting them. I think it was yesterday, and I think I counted 38 at this point, so I'm sure there possibly maybe have been a few more, I'm not too sure. But this tank I am doing about 50 to 60% every day, and there is quite a big difference in the bigger ones. You can see some of the bigger ones at the back, and then we do still have several smaller ones, so I'm not sure if I'm going to separate them at this point. When I'm cleaning this tank, usually just for the last few minutes, I will just vacuum the bottom very, very carefully, and I'll have the water run into a jug because obviously I don't want to suck any of the babies up. But this polyfilter works really well. We use this when we're doing our shipping, and I just kept a piece back. It's absolutely filthy, but it does the job. It stops them from being sucked up. This tank I also do about 30 to 40%, and I always vacuum the bottom of it. This one actually will be the betta fish grow out tank, and Daffy there will be going into another tank. I'm really sorry if you can hear the water draining, but obviously we've got a lot of it going down the sink right now on both sides, so I apologize if you can hear that running. And then this tank as well, I do usually between 50 and 60% on it too. So I do get a lot of questions to why we put our heater so low in our tanks. And the reason for that is if I don't, then I burn them out. Because we do fairly large water changes, and I'm not used to putting heaters in the tanks because for most of the year we don't use them, then I just completely forget about them, and then the water level ends up dropping really low. And so in all the tanks I do have them really, really low to the bottom. Take a look and see if we can get some good footage of the babies. This is probably one of the bigger ones. Unfortunately my camera still doesn't want to focus even though they are a lot bigger. But you can see there is a big difference in size. We do still have issues with the tail dragging along the bottom. It's not as bad as it was, but some of them have been really bad, and I'm not quite sure what we're going to do about that at this point. I just wish my camera would focus here, but it just doesn't seem to want to. They are all eating really well. We're doing the banana worms, micro worms, baby brine shrimp. We're doing rapashi and also the frozen daphnia. So they are eating quite a variety now. And I feed them 2 to 3 times a day depending on what we're feeding them. And they all seem to eat really, really well. So we haven't got any issues there. It is just with this sort of tail dragging along the bottom. Some of them, you can see one of them there doing it now. Unfortunately, some of them just really struggle to get off the bottom, and others sort of they just do swim around, but they're just having an issue with it. So like I say, I'm not quite sure what we're going to do about that at this point. We're going to continue to let them grow. I have noticed that several of them don't have their ventral fins, and I have been doing a lot of research on that, and it does seem to correlate with using a lot of microworms at the beginning. And it isn't the microworms themselves, it seems to be a bacteria issue that then causes them not to grow. So in and of itself, it's not that detrimental to the fish. It's just obviously an aesthetics thing in how they look, in that they're not going to have them. And in fact, if I can find the biggest one in here, very often she is behind the sponge filter. Yeah, I don't see her right now, but she actually doesn't have them. I think this one here might not have them. Again, my camera doesn't want to focus. Yeah, this one here doesn't have them. I don't know whether you can see that. And we have several that don't. You can see the one underneath does have them, but the one up above doesn't. We are getting quite a bit of aggression already, and so that's why I'm sort of thinking that maybe I will take the larger ones out and possibly put them into the 20-gallon grow out. But as yet I haven't done that, and it probably will be in the next maybe few days or maybe a week or so when I'm going to move them. So to fill the tanks up, I add the Prime water conditioner, and then all I do is actually attach the hose onto the tank, and then I can just let it fill up that way. So that makes it really easy. I can only actually do it for this tank and this tank, but the other two I have to use jugs because it won't reach that far. But this is really handy for me because then I don't have to do a lot of jugs into the tanks. And this one being the biggest one, especially once the baby betas are in here and I'm still having to do the 50%, 60% daily water changes, then obviously this is going to make it a lot easier for me. As you can see, Daffy is not in the least bit bothered. All she wants is feeding, which usually I do feed all the fish after I've done a water change, which is probably counterproductive, but that's just the way I do it. So now all the tanks are clean, I'm just feeding some baby brine shrimp and frozen Daphnia, and I've just done the guppies, and then I've done the beta fish tank, the babies. The reason I do the mixture of the two, being the Daphnia and the baby brine shrimp, is because some of the babies are still not big enough to be able to eat the Daphnia, so I do a mixture of the two so that obviously they can all get to eat something. And then I've also just done frozen Daphnia for Daffy here, and also some for Minnie, but I think she's already eaten all hers. I will be doing Repashy gel food. I do that for the snails, and thankfully she never gets a look in, so she can't actually overeat. Alright guys, that's it for this video. I wanted to say thank you so much for 20,000 subscribers. Thank you to each and every one of you that support our channel, that comment on our videos. It does mean so much to us. If you're not subscribed to this channel and you'd like to see more videos like this, then please do so, and we'll see you next time.